In the brilliant summer sunshine outside the historic Henry VIII Gate at Windsor Castle, the carefully constructed aristocratic fortress of Queen Camilla suffered a catastrophic public collapse. What Camilla just realized, reportedly turning pale beneath the heavy plumes of her velvet Tudor bonnet, is that wearing the robes of the oldest chivalric order the world does not grant you the power to rewrite its history. She had arrived for the grand procession of the Order of the Garter, fully expecting to march in parallel supremacy with the king, while her personally invited entourage of family members and strategic allies waited in the exclusive VIP enclosures. Instead, she was subjected to a breathtakingly precise visual humiliation. In a flawlessly executed administrative maneuver, she found her physical position in the procession quietly but firmly relocated behind Princess Anne and Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Simultaneously, less than a mile away at the castle's security checkpoints, her hand-picked inner circle was being systematically denied entry, their digital access passes rejected by a silent, unyielding protocol that recognized only the true royal bloodline. This is the story of how Princess Anne and Prince William weaponized a 700-year-old charter to execute a ruthless, silent purge of Queen Camilla's shadow court. We are going to unpack the secret guest list Camilla attempted to engineer for the royal family's most sacred gathering, the exact moment the Princess Royal discovered the paper trail, and the chillingly quiet retaliation that left the Queen Consort structurally isolated on the most important day of the royal calendar. You will understand how the illusion of absolute power can instantly disintegrate when confronted with the cold, immovable reality of the institution's ancient immune system. This is a forensic look at how the palace uses the mundane machinery of security barcodes and seating charts to turn a historic pageant into a lethal weapon of containment, leaving Camilla trapped in a state of profound institutional irrelevance. To comprehend the sheer magnitude of this psychological defeat, we must first rebuild the towering illusion of invincibility Camilla had spent decades constructing. For 30 years, her trajectory within the House of Windsor was a masterclass in patient, calculated survival and the staggering exploitation of public memory. She endured the hatred of the 90s, played the ultimate long game, and successfully transitioned into the anointed queen consort. But her crowning achievement, the moment she believed she had finally eradicated the lingering ghost of Princess Diana, occurred when she was installed as a royal lady of the Order of the Garter. To Camilla, donning the sweeping blue velvet mantle and the diamond star was not just an honor, it was a permanent, unbreakable shield. She operated under the comfortable delusion that her induction into this ancient order meant her non-royal bloodline had finally been elevated to absolute equality with the Windsors. She believed that as long as King Charles wore the sovereign's mantle, her authority to mold the monarchy's inner circle was absolute and untouchable. This sense of supreme dominance bred a dangerous level of confidence, leading her to initiate a staggering institutional overreach in the early summer of 2026. As the palace prepared for the annual Garter Day, a highly exclusive event that gathers the most senior nobility and foreign monarchs at Windsor, Camilla saw an opportunity to permanently codify her family's status. The core of Garter Day is not just the public procession, but the fiercely private luncheon held in the Waterloo Chamber, an inner sanctum where the true power brokers of the kingdom break bread. Seeking to cement her legacy while King Charles's health required him to take a more passive role, Camilla quietly lobbied the Lord Chamberlain's office to expand the master guest list. Her plan was both subtle and breathtakingly ambitious. She submitted a roster of names that included her immediate non-royal family members, her closest confidants, and the strategic public relations executives who had spent years crafting her public image. She requested that they be granted premium access to the Waterloo Chamber and the designated royal viewing boxes inside St. George's Chapel. It was a calculated attempt to rewrite the visual and administrative hierarchy of the monarchy. By seating her private entourage alongside the Knights of the Garter and the senior working royals, Camilla was attempting to merge her personal ecosystem with the 700-year-old chivalric order, effectively institutionalizing her shadow court and sidelining the true heirs to the throne. However, Camilla drastically underestimated the forensic vigilance of the institution's ultimate enforcer, Princess Anne. As the hardest-working member of the family, and a woman who possesses a zero-tolerance policy for protocol breaches, the Princess Royal has always viewed Camilla's ambition with a cold aristocratic skepticism. Anne has never forgotten the damage inflicted upon the crown by the scandals of the past, and she operates as the fierce, unyielding guardian of the bloodline. The discovery of Camilla's bloated guest list occurred during a routine security and protocol review managed jointly by Anne and Prince William's office. When they examined the access requests originating from the Queen Consort's staff, the true nature of the strategy became instantly clear. It was not a simple request for family seating. It was a Trojan horse designed to elevate commoners into the most sacred inner sanctum of the British establishment. Instead of instigating a loud, chaotic confrontation that would inevitably leak to the press and distress the king, William and Anne chose to weaponize the system itself. They understood that in the world of high-stakes royal diplomacy, the most brutal blows are delivered through the strict, unapologetic application of the rules. Working in absolute secrecy with the highest levels of the royal security apparatus and the Garter King of Arms, a silent counter-strategy was set into motion. They did not cancel Camilla's guests or issue an angry decree. They simply reverted the event's security parameters to the original ancient stipulations of the Garter Charter, an unyielding framework that strictly dictates access based entirely on the constitutional bloodline and direct service to the crown. The retaliation was executed through the quiet, invisible realm of digital access. Without notifying Camilla's private office, the master security database at Windsor Castle was updated. The protocol dictated that any individual lacking a direct constitutional role, a recognized chivalric title, or explicit authorization from the Prince of Wales, who controls the sovereign estate's security budgets, would be downgraded to standard public access. This detail matters immensely. William and Anne used the boring mechanical reality of estate management to build an invisible, impenetrable wall around the Order of the Garter. They transformed a routine administrative checklist into a lethal mechanism of institutional defense, ensuring that Camilla's illusion of absolute power would violently collide with the hard parameters of reality. The trap snapped shut with devastating precision on the morning of Garter Day. As the Windsor estate buzzed with anticipation, the fleet of private vehicles carrying Camilla's hand-picked VIPs approached the Henry VIII Gate, the primary security checkpoint for royal guests. They arrived expecting to be ushered through with the deference owed to the Queen Consort's inner circle. But as their digital passes were scanned by the Metropolitan Police, the system flashed red. The barcodes did not match the newly enforced Bloodline protocol. In a scene of staggering quiet humiliation, the officers politely but firmly informed the executives, the PR consultants, and the extended family members that their clearance was invalid for the inner wards. They were denied entry to the Waterloo Chamber and the royal enclosures. Instead, they were instructed to park in the overflow lots and were redirected to the public tourist viewing areas along the procession route. Word of the security blockade reached Camilla just as she was being dressed, in her heavy velvet robes and plumed hat inside the state apartments. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. Her entire strategy to permanently embed her allies into the heart of the monarchy had been cleanly, surgically excised by a computer system she could not argue with. If she complained or demanded that the guards let her people in, she would be seen publicly attacking the security forces and the ancient rules of the very order she was supposedly honoring. She was completely paralyzed by the brilliance of the administrative trap. To compound the psychological devastation, the physical orchestration of the procession itself had been quietly amended. As the senior royals gathered to begin the historic walk down the hill to St. George's Chapel, the Garter King of Arms directed the formation. Camilla, who had spent the last 2 years positioning herself to walk at the absolute front of the vanguard, found her placement shifted. The strict adherence to the Bloodline Charter meant that the Garter procession was anchored by the visual supremacy of the true heirs. Camilla was physically repositioned to walk behind Princess Anne, the very architect of her downfall, and Catherine, the Princess of Wales who radiated the effortless, uncomplaining authority of the future sovereign. As Camilla began the long, agonizing walk down the hill surrounded by the towering stone walls of Windsor, the visual contrast was absolute. She was draped in the diamonds and velvet of the highest order in the land. Yet she had never been more powerless. She looked out into the crowds lining the route and saw her carefully. Selected VIPs standing behind the metal barricades among the tourists, stripped of their elite status. She realized in that exact moment that the Prince of Wales and the Princess Royal possessed the absolute ability to dismantle her empire without ever raising their voices. The illusion of her control had been entirely erased by the cold, permanent reality of the bloodline, trapping her in a profound state of commercial and institutional desperation. As she marched silently behind the ghosts, she thought she had conquered. The heavy rhythmic tolling of the bells at St. George's Chapel usually signifies a celebration of ancient royal continuity. But for Queen Camilla, marching in the shadow of Princess Anne and the Princess of Wales, the bells sounded like the methodical dismantling of her 30-year legacy. As the grand procession moved into the cool, dark sanctuary of the historic chapel, the visual reality of the new protocol took hold. Camilla was directed to a secondary seating position separated from the immediate absolute center of sovereign authority. Her carefully curated audience of PR executives and family members was nowhere to be seen, leaving her completely isolated among the highest echelons of the British aristocracy. It was during the highly exclusive, private luncheon in the Waterloo Chamber that Camilla reportedly attempted to mount her final defense. Surrounded by the towering portraits of victorious monarchs, she sought out King Charles, demanding an explanation for the security blockade that had humiliated her inner circle at the estate gates. She expected the king to express outrage to summon the Lord Chamberlain, and to issue a swift reprimand to the security offices that Prince William controlled. She desperately needed her husband to reassert his absolute authority and validate her position. But what happened next was the ultimate psychological betrayal. As Camilla presented her grievances, King Charles simply looked away. The silence from the head of the table was deafening. The king, dealing with his own frailties and acutely aware of the shifting tectonic plates of power beneath his feet, offered no defense. He did not override the ancient Garter Charter, and he did not challenge his son or his sister. Charles is a student of history, and he understands the unyielding physics of the crown. Defending Camilla's attempt to elevate commoners into the heart of the Garter ceremony would mean openly fighting the very institution that protects his bloodline. He chose the quiet survival of the monarchy over the immediate comfort of his wife. For Camilla, realizing that her ultimate shield had completely abandoned her to the bureaucratic machinery of the palace, was a devastating, irreversible blow. This chilling silence exposed the terrifying reality of commercial desperation that Camilla has spent decades trying to mask. When you strip away the velvet robes and the inherited diamonds, the financial and territorial truth is profoundly humbling. Queen Camilla owns absolutely nothing of the royal empire. The true power of the monarchy lies in the land, the security apparatus, and the astronomical revenue generated by the Duchy of Cornwall, all of which are entirely controlled by Prince William. Her ability to elevate her friends to grant them access to historic castles, and to fund her strategic PR campaigns relies entirely on borrowed authority. When William and Anne weaponized the security protocols at Windsor, they were sending a clear, untraceable financial message. They were reminding Camilla that every inch of estate ground her guests walk on, and every security pass they swipe is paid for and authorized by the Prince of Wales. Camilla simply does not have the personal capital or the sovereign authority to bypass William's administrative gates. Without the king's active intervention, her shadow court cannot exist because she cannot afford to sustain it or protect it. The moment the king passes her access to this immense machinery will be instantly shut off. She will be relegated to the position of a dowager queen, forced to retreat to her modest private property in Wiltshire, leaving the grand state rooms of Windsor far behind. While William and Anne ruthlessly managed the physical and administrative boundaries, Catherine executed a flawless visual takeover. The Princess of Wales did not need to engage in the territorial dispute over guest lists. She simply arrived and embodied the absolute moral authority of the future. At the Garter service, Catherine stepped into the light, wearing the iconic Collingwood pearl earrings, a beloved gift given to Princess Diana before her wedding. That detail matters immensely. In a room where Camilla was attempting to erase the past and install her own legacy, Catherine weaponized royal jewelry to execute a deliberate institutional correction. Every time Catherine turned her head, the pearls flashed in the light, serving as a forensic visual reminder of the true line of descent. It was a brilliant psychological maneuver that physically linked the legacy of the late Queen Elizabeth directly to Catherine, entirely bypassing the Camilla era. The contrast was devastating. The Queen Consort was trapped in the rigid architecture of the Garter Protocol, isolated from her allies and abandoned by her husband, while Catherine commanded the absolute reverence of the room. Catherine's uncomplaining sacrifice and enduring grace had transformed her into the undisputed matriarch of the House of Windsor. She did not merely survive the Camilla years, she had outlasted them. What the public witnessed on Garter Day was not just a parade of aristocratic pageantry. It was a masterclass in how an ancient institution protects its future from modern ambition. Princess Anne and Prince William proved that true power is not exercised by screaming the loudest or demanding the most prominent position in a photograph. True power is understanding the boring, complex machinery of the institution. It is controlling the security databases, mastering the ancient charters, and waiting for the perfect, highly visible moment to remind your opponent that they are merely a temporary occupant in a permanent kingdom. Camilla spent her entire life playing a ruthless game of strategy, manipulating the press and maneuvering through scandals to claim the ultimate prize. But she failed to realize that the final winning move belonged to the architects of the new reign. The illusion of her absolute power shattered the moment her guests were turned away at the gates of Windsor, proving that a crown cannot buy the bloodline, and it certainly cannot defeat the permanent reality of the institution. Thank you for watching this forensic analysis of the hidden power dynamics within the British royal family. If you found this breakdown of Garter Day insightful, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on how Princess Anne and Prince William protect the crown.